Welcome back. Installment 13 of God Laughs at Dirty Jokes book readings. We're going to start with chapter 27 today, but before we do, thank you. A huge thank you to Kim Carey with Intuitive View. She interviewed me last week for her channel to talk about the book and to talk about music and the connections between music and spirit and science and spirit. And it was great. The response was really overwhelming in its positivity. I can't believe how many people came over to check out the videos and to subscribe to my fledgling channel. So thank you very much, Kim. Thank you to everybody who came and took a look either at those videos or these book reading videos. And thank you for all your thoughtful and kind comments and compliments. It was really pretty awesome. It kind of blew me away. So gotta say that first. And then I think that's it for announcements. I'm gonna just try to get right into it and not chat too much off the top. Although I do have a little dream thing to mention as we go along. You'll see when we get there. A dream from last night. Okay, so chapter 27 is called Collective Energy. Collective Energy. Comedian Bill Hicks said, "All matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. All matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, and we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves." I like that a lot. Is it true? I definitely believe our individual energies can interact and coalesce to become a single more powerful energy under the right circumstances. Think of the rush you feel at a large sporting event or rock concert. The excitement of the crowd is palpable. There's a feeling in the air. This often used choice of words is telling, much like feeling someone's vibe. There literally is a feeling in the air, or more precisely, the energy of everyone's feelings all at once. In a hockey arena with 20,000 people, that's a lot of juice. As previously mentioned, every thought we have is released as energy, consuming calories for its creation. The resting brain burns about 1/10 of a calorie per minute. The intensely active brain burns up to 1.5 calories. Our thoughts radiate outward whether we're paying attention or not. Perceptive individuals can pick them up. The sum of all thoughts and feelings in the air unconsciously affects everyone. That's my belief. The crowd is a critical part of any sporting event and can affect the outcome. Fans are never separate from the players. If the home team is dominant, the crowd feels it and responds with loud support, initiating momentum. The arena starts rocking. The energy level builds and starts to cycle. If the crowd brings anxiety and fear, it can hang heavy and adversely affect the home team as well, especially if things don't start well. When the visiting team senses that the crowd and home team aren't united, the collective feeling of discomfort can be used to their advantage instead. Fear is a heavy feeling, but hope is more powerful. Hope and courage are inseparable, which is why players with strong character are the most dominant and valuable. When a huge crowd cheers loudly, the waves of sound resonate in your body and are absorbed by your cells. Positive vibrations help you get caught up in it. This is partly why professional sports are so popular. Each individual becomes aware of the greater shared feeling and inhibitions diminish. Beer also helps. The energy can become collective and unified, and we may experience a harmonious, pleasurable unity of mind and purpose. A large crowd can turn ugly if things aren't going well. Negative energy affects everyone differently. Some people barely notice or shrug it off, but to others it's like a pheromone floating in the air, triggering an aggressive response. The animal is awakened, and if someone is already inherently confrontational or two sheets to the wind, then a collective bad feeling can incite him. This is analogous to how we sometimes perceive bad vibes in a room of people the moment we walk into it. If an argument has taken place, we can feel the hostility in the air. The black energy of the arguer's anger collects in the space, hanging like a fart. When any two people meet and shake hands, communication occurs even if no words are spoken. Their Their auras interact in the space between. Suspicion or hostility may be immediately perceived, and conversely, friendliness and openness. One becomes more perceptive when the ego is minimized. If you're wrapped in your own concerns or are excessively self-conscious, you're not open to what other people are putting out. You're trapped inside yourself. I like when parties get loose and people are silly and playful. A few drinks into the evening, the social lubricant does its duty, and we let more of our true selves show. When laughter fills a room, it's intoxicating, in addition to the alcohol, if there is any. Joyful collective energies pack a lot of power. A room of people enjoying each other's companionship, celebrating the good fortune of another day on earth is a little slice of heaven and a preview of the big joy to which we will return. I like to think of the afterlife as a fun, unending carnival populated with everyone we've ever known when all is forgiven, like the closing scene of Fellini's 8½, which is a movie that I really still like very much. Of course, if our spirits survive death, we'll be presumably disembodied. The priorities of our animal side will be dispatched. Part of me mourns the loss of the body because sex and beer are great. However, my brother's visions imply that there are different physical realms to explore, and my visit by sex ghost suggests sexuality somehow remains of interest to spirits, though I don't know why. And I'm not entirely sure about that statement, too. But that did happen. Perhaps as pure essence, we can choose different physical manifestations of ourselves and otherwise exist as consciousness and intelligence, the best of both worlds. That is the conclusion of chapter 27. We're going to go on to chapter 28. Oh, and before I do, I just want to apologize. If you happen to see a copy of this video earlier this afternoon, I did record. This is the second time I'm recording it. I had to get rid of the first version because my microphone was too loud and it was distorting. So if you saw it in your feed and then it disappeared on you, that's why. Sorry about that. Okay, so chapter 28 is called Global Consciousness and Synchronicity. I'm not a big fan of organized religion, as you know, but I've been intrigued to read about prayer experiments aimed at reducing gang violence in urban areas. This reminds me of the collective prayers of Buddhist monks for the proliferation of loving kindness. Buddhists believe in vibrations too, and that when certain sounds and words, called mantras, are repeated, they arouse good vibrations within a person that can open them up to a greater consciousness. Buddhist monks attempt to pool the sum of their individual prayers into more powerful collective prayers for peacefulness and empathy. It seems that individual and collective positive energy can be focused upon an objective and affect change. What's unknown is just how far-reaching these efforts could be if hundreds or thousands of people decided to focus on simple positive goals together. How much does our quantum reality bend towards good thoughts and prayers to make the world a better place? I'd like to believe quite a lot. Scientists, too, have taken an interest in the intentional and accidental coalescence of energies, applying statistical analysis to what was once thought to be an immeasurable mystical realm. There have been some interesting experiments about the synchronization of human feelings and collective awareness. One of the first I became aware of is ongoing at Harvard University. Harvard initiated the Global Consciousness Project in 1998. Academia would call it a parapsychology project. I don't speak academic, so I'll describe it as I understand it. It's an experiment to determine whether human consciousness can be detected and measured by inorganic physical systems like a computer. 65 computers called eggs, like crack the eggs. 65 computers called eggs are positioned in labs around the world. The computers are programmed to act as random number generators. They spit out arbitrary data on a continual basis, independent of one another. Researchers discovered that when an event of global significance occurs, one that millions or billions of people are aware of at the same time, the random data being generated by the eggs begins to take on a pattern, and that pattern is mirrored at each of the computer sites. Why would a bunch of independent computers generating random numbers suddenly begin to correlate unless the energies we radiate are measurable and effective? effective. The eggs recorded a huge data spike when September 11 occurred. Researchers were intrigued that data correlation not only ramped up during and after the event, but for a few days before it happened too. Great numbers of people seem to sense or become aware of this impending disaster in advance, which means our understanding of time is incomplete, and also that precognition is possible. As I've said previously, I believe all of history has always existed. The past, present, and future are already written, but the only way to experience it as a mortal is sequentially, as separate moments. Psychics have been in demand for centuries because they can perceive a greater reality beyond the present and predict future events of importance. Now, having said that, if it is true that the past, the present, and the future all coexist and always exist, it doesn't eliminate free will. We still have free will, but you end up kind of with a paradox that you have to live with, that you have free will, you can you can choose to do whatever you want in any moment, but in some sense you've already chosen, because everything that exists and has existed and will exist is already there. So that is a paradoxical notion, but that's one way of reconciling it. And I don't know for sure, but there's obviously something going on with time, because the fact that there are psychics, a lot of you know Linda G. Linda G had a vision of COVID-19 like 6 or 7 months before it ever happened. Her guides gave it to her. So they were able to show her a glimpse of the future. You can't show someone a glimpse of the future if the future isn't already there. Or at least or isn't at least a strong possibility, right? So there is something there, though it's not fully understood, and maybe it won't ever will be fully understood. So back to the notion of the eggs and September 11. This next paragraph is in parentheses. One might argue that the reason the egg computer data spiked in advance of September 11 is that the thoughts of those involved in planning and executing the attack were picked up by the eggs. But even if hundreds or thousands of people, the population of a small town, knew the plan in advance, that's still very few people compared to the global population. My understanding is that the eggs only register a spike when an event occurs that is known or experienced by millions, hundreds of millions, or even billions. 2 days prior to September 11, I had a graphic dream about the destruction of an enormous expansion bridge in a major city that was not my hometown of Buffalo. I stood near the base of the bridge, and as I looked up, noticed that the tremendous stone gargoyles perched at the top were shaking. Pieces crumbled off, and I realized it wasn't just the gargoyles, but the whole bridge that was beginning to fall. I was paralyzed with fear, and everything happened in slow motion. I saw the pieces coming at me and everyone else around, but was unable to move. A massive cloud of white dust rose as the bridge pieces began crashing to the ground. Then I woke up. Now, what I didn't write in the book about the gargoyles are the first thing I noticed shaking on the bridge. I didn't realize it until after the book was out that gargoyles, I believe, are meant to ward off dark forces. That's the purpose of a gargoyle, to scare away dark forces, to ward off, the big E word, which I don't feel like saying. And in this case, in this dream, the gargoyles are essentially defeated first. They're knocked off first, and then the bridge follows. So I think it's meant to be, frightening, but it doesn't frighten me because I don't know, it just doesn't, because you still gotta live in your faith and in your light and your love and your belief in the greater meaning of things, the bigger picture. And so since I'm sort of wandering into, not bad energy, but since we're wandering into maybe some controversial issues here, I'll just ask for white light protection for myself, for you, the viewer, for anybody who comes across this video. May we be surrounded in the healing and protective white light of God. Just as a precaution. It's a good thing to do kind of anytime you start to wrestle with maybe stuff that is a little bit not entirely wholesome. Okay, back to the book. enough tangents. I feel other aspects of synchronicity consistently. Some incidents are bigger than others. As previously mentioned, when a friend I haven't seen in a while comes to mind, an email, text, or phone call often follows within a few hours, as if I've either sensed the forthcoming communication in advance, or by thinking of them, they get a quantum message from me and decide to get in touch. We might consider this small potatoes, but the frequency of these experiences makes them harder to dismiss. A few times a week, I work out at the university pool. The youngsters blast by me, the swimming pool. The youngsters blast by me, but I often get them on distance by swimming up to 90 minutes at a time. The swims were shorter until I bought an underwater MP3 player. It's literally an underwater headset that attaches to goggles for swimming. It's amazing, so you can just play your music while you swim. I set the Swim P3 player to random play. Sometimes I know what song will play next a split second before it comes on. I mean, rarely, but sometimes. I feel the future, even though the interval of time is very small, a fraction of a second. I imagine that more evolved spiritual beings are able to see that much further ahead. Recently, when singer Josh Clayton Felt came to mind, a few of his songs played in sequence, even though the MP3 player is filled with 60 or 70 songs by various artists. So I thought of Josh Clayton Felt while I was swimming, and then boom, the next song that played was by Josh Clayton Felt, who I encourage you to check out if you like singer-songwriter material. And he's referenced in chapter 4, if you feel like going back for a refresher on that. I think it's chapter 4. It's one of the first 3-4 chapters. When my copy editor, Christy, worked on this book and was deep into the chapter about dark spiritual traffic, she said her stereo began to play unusual discordant jazz song after song, even though it was set on random. I speculated that her exposure to and thoughts about some of these ideas kicked energies into the air that altered her space. Her stereo acted like one of the Harvard eggs, playing songs in a more specific pattern instead of randomly. It synchronized with the energy of her thoughts, or some spirits wanted her to experience connectivity firsthand to help her believe what she was reading, or to try to freak her out if they were mischievous. Those prankster spirits that are around. That's why we're in the white light right now, since we're talking about it. When my musical group performed a few winters ago at the Hard Rock Cafe in Niagara Falls, we had an oddball occurrence of musical synchronicity. We just finished our 1-hour set of songs, performing all original music, and another band was preparing to perform the final set of the evening. We shared some equipment with them to make the transition between bands quicker. The large bank of TVs behind the stage and around the restaurant played music videos when we first arrived, with audio pumped through the house sound system. When our set was over, the staff turned the house TVs and music back on. The next two videos that played were Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder. We were packing up our instruments while the next band brought theirs on stage. The singer from the next band told me that those exact songs by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder were on his band's set list to perform that evening. Band on the Run and Sir Duke also happened to be the only songs they'd perform that weren't written by their band. What are the chances of that happening? Again, far smaller than winning the lottery. About a week later, there was another synchronous music-related event. While editing music on my computer, I dug out an old demo for a song called Shiver. With fresh ears, it sounded good again, and I thought I might add it to my next CD. When I was done, I shut down the computer and turned on the TV. I dialed through my half-dozen non-cable channels and found a music video show. The band Coldplay performed a song called Shiver, which I'd never heard before, so obviously it had nothing to do with my Shiver. The song title flashed on the screen at the end, so I checked my Shiver, I turned the computer off, then they're playing their Shiver. Again, what are the chances of that being just random? The next morning, I wrote a note on my Facebook music page about the Shiver event and also described the synchronous incident with the Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder songs at the Hard Rock show. I also dreamt about the Beatles last night, by the way, and at least at the time of the writing of this book. My cousin Mike, who performed with me at the Hard Rock show, replied in the form of lyrics from a song by The Police on the subject called Synchronicity. So if you know the band The Police, they have a song called Synchronicity on this very subject. And Mike, my cousin, who played in my band at that time, quoted the song. This is the quote. "Many miles away, something crawls from the slime at the bottom of a dark Scottish lake." This part of the lyric refers to the Loch Ness Monster, but the song is primarily about a middle-aged suburban man whose home life and work life are a mess. At the start of the song, something monstrous, the Loch Ness Monster, is stirring at the bottom of a lake like the man's anger bubbling. Later, the creature surfaces. At the end of the song, a monster's shadow is on his door as the man nears home after a humiliating day at work. It's implied that he may do something terrible to his family. Immediately after reading Mike's comment, I jumped to another website tab and saw a news article about someone supposedly capturing video footage of the Loch Ness Monster. To summarize, a third synchronous event, seeing the article about the Loch Ness Monster, which is referenced in the song Synchronicity and was quoted by my cousin Mike, occurred immediately after I had detailed two previous related incidents of synchronicity, one of which involved my cousin Mike, leading him to mention a song about synchronicity, and all three synchronous events are related to music. Coincidence? No way. You still with me? I know it gets a little confusing in there, so if you need to go back, feel free. Okay. This was mirrored in the summer of 2014 when my 1950s side band, Wood Candy, performed at Marinero's Larkin Tavern in Buffalo's First Ward District. Now, here's where I want to mention my literal dream from last night. Last night, out of the blue, I dreamt about this band I used to play in called Wood Candy, and we did 1950s rock and roll. So I didn't realize that there was going to be a reference to Wood Candy in the chapters that I'm reading today. And then when I previewed them earlier, I was like, holy cow. So again, it's like those synchronicities, just they pile on top of each other, and then you just have to go, yeah, these are signs of the meaningful connected universe, right? So, okay, so I'll restart that chapter. So the whole thing with all these musical incidents, this was mirrored in the summer of 2014 when my 1950s side band Wood Candy performed at Marinero's Larkin Tavern in Buffalo's First Ward District. We did a 3-set show from 8 to 11 p.m. The band was really cooking, each set a little hotter than the last. The crowd was supportive and very responsive, with lots of dancing, which always makes musicians feel good. Our show consisted primarily of songs by Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, and Ray Charles, with a dash of Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, and Howlin' Wolf. Backdoor Man, that was the song we did by him. People often ask for songs from other decades, but I don't know that many covers outside the ones I've learned for the group, and we try to stick to the 1950s format. At the end of the show, they applauded for encores. A gentleman of about 60 shouted for James Brown and said he'd buy the entire bar a drink if we did one. I love James Brown, but most of his hits are from the 60s. I wasn't sure I could sing that high, but we jumped into I Feel Good anyway, and it felt pretty damn good. They loved it. We might have to break the rules again for that one. At the end of the song, I told the guy to break out his credit card. When Chris, one of the bar owners, turned the radio back on, the next song that played was I Feel Good by James Brown. At first I thought maybe someone had picked it on the jukebox wanting to hear it again after our performance, but Chris said the radio was tuned to an oldies station. 2 days later, a friend and I went to a late show at a comedy club in the Cobblestone District. It was great. Thanks, Pete Holmes. That's the comedian we saw. After the show, we stopped at a new bar with a bicycling theme. Bar stools with ornate cast iron foot pedals. A few blocks away on Swan Street. We ordered drinks. The next song that came on the sound system was I Feel Good by James Brown. A big grin broke out on my face. So that's like 3 in a row. A few weeks later, I treated myself to a rare Monday evening out at a Belgian beer bar I love. And that was a bar in Buffalo called Blue Monk, which doesn't exist anymore, sadly. They specialized in Belgian beers. They had 30, 40 taps down in Belgian beer. It was crazy. It was like my fave for so long, and then they closed. But anyway, Then a few weeks later, I treated myself to a rare Monday evening out at a Belgian beer bar I love. The DJ was playing fun 70s and 80s R&B pop like Michael Jackson, Prince, Buffalo Zone, Rick James, Earth, Wind & Fire, Sheila E., and Belle Biv DeVoe. His collection was entirely vinyl, mostly 45 RPM singles. I had 2 songs in mind to request. She's a Bad Mamma Jamma by Carl Carlton and Sensitivity by Ralph Travant. I thought the Ralph Travant song might be too obscure, so I asked for the Carl Carlton song. He played it a few minutes later. I flashed a friendly smile and peace sign from the bar. 2 songs later, he played the Ralph Travant song I'd been thinking of but had decided not to ask for because it was obscure. He got my thought. He got my thought anyway, somehow. That's crazy, right? It's kind of crazy. I was giddy and wanted to share what had just happened. I'm friendly with Lisa and Mike, 2 of the bartenders, so I told them. Then I told them about the James Brown song and how it was just the tip of the synchronistic iceberg. Inevitably, Lisa revealed, she told me that she and her brother are both somewhat clairvoyant. Earlier that day, she'd received 3 phone calls from 3 different people immediately after discussing each of them with her coworkers and friends. So now you're getting the pileup, which is another thing that seems to happen with synchronicity. Once that door opens or that ball rolls or whatever metaphor you want, it seems like it's everywhere, which is so cool, so interesting. The energy of the room became noticeably more joyful. More people who knew the bartender Lisa arrived, and hugs followed. It felt like a great private party with me as an omniscient observer. Sitting at the bar, I felt excited about the steadily increasing episodes of synchronicity, because these were the early days of that for me. I hoped they were signs of something greater to come, like a joyful spiritual movement that spreads like wildfire and embodies hope. I want to see a love revolution of any size, but preferably huge. Yes, I do. So many synchronous moments have happened since 1997 that I almost take them for granted. I remind myself to be amazed. It's in tune with my new beliefs about reality. A synonym of synchronicity is harmony. When we align with the vibrations of love and goodwill, we are in harmony with the universe. At minimum, synchronicity is proof of the possibilities for mysterious, deeper connectivity. The secret of life is that magic is real. And that is the end of chapter 28. So I hope you enjoyed it. Pardon my tangents here and there, and occasional stumbling over words. Your comments and feedback are always welcome, or questions if you have them. I may not have all the answers, but I'll try to answer your question if you have one. And then we'll see you next time for the next installment. Thanks very much for tuning in, and take care.